So, welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Business. Today, we'll be talking with Paul Edwards on how to effectively conduct trade show and events. My name is Tracy Hansen, and I'm the program manager of the Washington Center for Women in Business. A few quick housekeeping things. We are recording this, so if you want to listen to it later or send it to friends and colleagues, you're welcome to. Please mute yourself in between us talking. I guess we can't hear you anyway, so that's kind of a moot point on this one. If you are having trouble hearing us, it sounds like everything's okay, but try calling in with the phone audio issues. And I guess if you have questions, don't raise your hand, ignore that raised hand, and type it into the chat box, and we'll be able to see. Paul is here in the room with me, so both of us will be able to see those questions. A little bit about the Washington Center for Women in Business. The WCWB is funded in part from the U.S. Small Business Administration, and our entire goal is to help women who want to either start businesses or if they're in business, how can we help you be more successful? Congress actually funds the Women's Business Center program because women business owners typically realize about a quarter of the profits and a quarter of the access to capital as their male-owned counterpart. So why is that? And we want to be able to be a resource for you guys. And you'll see on the screen just a few of the things that we cover. Really anything that's in your business that you want help on or that's a stumbling block, we're here to help you with that. And how do we help you? A lot of it is workshops like this, kind of group learning. We do webinars every week. Every Wednesday, it's a Let's Talk Business, or we have in-person trainings throughout the state periodically. But a lot of our services come from one-on-one business coaching. So you would meet with Christine Buckley, our business coach. Again, you would kind of tell her what your goals are, what your hangups are, and you guys would work on a plan together. And we are located in Lacey, Washington, even though we cover the whole state of Washington. So we can do this in person, over the phone, or Skype. Where are you located, Jennifer, just out of curiosity? The first time you meet with us, it is free. After that, it's $25 for a session, but we do have scholarships available. We never want price to be a barrier. You're in Renton, great. Okay, so yeah, we're happy to meet with you. I know that, gosh, the drive from Renton to Lacey can be a nightmare. So we could do Skype or webinar or phone so that we can work with you and not have to be in the car. Again, my name is Tracy. My contact information is up there, as well as our business coach and our coordinator to schedule. And I won't go over these, but these are just some of our upcoming webinars. And I'll send these out to you guys so that you have access to that. But with that, we're actually gonna head it over to Paul here in just 1 second.
All right, there I am. I'm going to add an in-team in on this. Hello, my name is Paul Edwards. I'm the author of 10 Secrets to Networking Success. That's a book that's coming out, should be any day now. Publishers drive me crazy every once in a while, but it's a book about the last 6 years of my career in the marketing business, and specifically as an insurance agent, but learning a lot of marketing, particularly with networking, online marketing, social media strategy, and on and on and on. And some of the most formative experiences that I had, that I talk about in the book, come from doing trade shows and events. So part of what I've created, this is going to be curriculum that's going to be available in a membership area that goes along with my book, is a strategy and tactics and ideas and angles, if you will, from which to approach doing community events and trade shows. And so what you'll see here, whoops, where am I? What key do I hit to go for the next one?
The side to side.
Oh. I'm not on the right screen.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So what you're going to learn here is how to use one-on-one meetings, how to amplify your tribe on social media, and useful ways to turn what goes around into what comes around. We've heard that expression before, right? What goes around comes around. Now I'm going to talk to you about some practical ways that you can engineer that in a positive way. But before I do that, there's a little bit of background to every story that I tell and every teaching that I give. One of them is, I always give people the background. How did I get here, right? And so the first thing that happened to me was I had a sufficient amount of failures trying to make conversation about everyone's least favorite subject. You know what? I think I realized I'm on the wrong module here.
Oh, do we need a different PowerPoint?
We do, yeah. So let me stand by. I just realized I'm on the, that's embarrassing. Hope you can hang with me for a minute here. I'm starting to get into
That's what happens when you're putting out a book. You have too many things on the brain.
Yeah, I do. There we go. Much better. Now I feel better. How do I, I have to download it. Yeah, shoot. Thank you for your patience. There we
And then
go.
up in the display settings, click on that and just say swap. Yeah. There we go.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to teach you those three things that I said. I'm going to teach you how to formulate an event strategy, how to drive traffic to your table, how to attract and keep traffic at your table, and how to qualify prospects in seconds. Okay. So there'll be a recording of this if you need it, but basically what we're talking about is a sort of start to finish overarching principles. Your individual tactics are going to have to be tailored according to your business. And there's too many variables for me to go into every last thing that could possibly happen. But as long as you keep these kind of things in mind, you're going to start to do these events a lot more predictably, a lot more comfortably. You're going to know how to be thinking prior to the situations arising. And you're not going to be sitting there at the end of it wondering, was this a success? Was it a failure? Was it a wise use of my time and my money and my effort and my sweat? These usually take place on the weekends. If they're, depending on the time of year, I've had ones that I just come home absolutely drop dead exhausted and I fall asleep immediately and have the most wonderful night's sleep. But that varies. So how did I get here? A sufficient amount of failures conducting trade shows and events with little to no leads. So I would go, when I started, the very first trade show and event that I did as an agent with Liberty Mutual, this is back in 2013, was the Southwest Washington Fair, and it went off tremendously well. I got a ton of leads, I did a ton of branding, I brought the Liberty Mutual brand into Centralia and Chehalis, they don't market heavily there. And I got a bunch of leads that extended into elsewhere in Lewis County. So originally, my market, the grassroots of my market basically sprung up in Lewis County. But after that, I had a long string of events that just nothing seemed to work the same. Either I got a ton of leads and none of them panned out, or I got no leads and it was even worse, or I didn't really understand why I was there and I didn't really have a method to follow. But eventually, over time, I began to pay attention to all of the things that worked well when I used them, and didn't work well when I didn't, or didn't work well in a certain situation. So I was contrasting those events with other ones and saying, why did this work here but not here, and why does this not work here but it does work here? And over time, you get exhausted and frustrated with being unproductive and not coming back with a whole bunch of leads, or having successfully branded yourself to your audience. So that was the first part. The second part of how I got here was by basically codifying these traits and saying, no matter what kind of event I'm doing, I can put this on there. I can do X, Y, Z, and X, Y, Z will happen. I was also able to reduce the amount of events I was participating in. This can become pretty grueling if you're doing them every month, which is what I was doing for a long time. I would do as many as 2 or 3 events a month during certain stretches. And, you know, it just means a lot of time away from your family, a lot of evenings, a lot of weekends. You don't want to not do them because they're beneficial for business, but you do want to do them in a way that is sustainable on an ongoing basis. And the last part, the best part, of course, is that I minimized wasted time, wasted money, wasted sweat equity. And I was able to, and of course, in this day and age, we're able to deploy social media as the follow-up, and we don't have to keep revisiting those people with annoying sales phone calls or showing up at other events where we have no idea if they're gonna be there as well. So that's a little bit of the background. So here's the 4 secrets you're gonna learn about. The number one thing you're gonna do is you're gonna define your name, define and name the strategy, the reason you're doing this event, right? So there's really only 2 reasons for this, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you need to be clear on why you're doing it, because if you're clear on why you're doing it, then you don't get into doing other reasons you're not, right? The second part of this is you're gonna learn how to require the event to drive traffic to you. So if you're doing an event, I mean, you can take a risk with doing events that don't do it, but most events do. Most of them realize these vendors are here, they're sponsoring, they want to get exposition, they want to get people at their table, so we better have a way of driving traffic to that table. You're also going to provide you're going to learn, I've got to provide a compelling attention getter at my table. There's got to be some reason for everybody who's passing by to stop. And the last part is you're going to learn how to insist on skin in the game for people who do stop. And it doesn't involve, don't worry, it doesn't involve being rude or confrontational or anything like that. So let's move into it. The first part of this is to define your event strategy, right? Define the strategy. So there's 2 reasons. There's lead generation and there's branding. And you can be doing both, or you can be doing just one. But usually it's going to be, if you're doing lead generation, that sort of implies branding. But there are events that I've done, for example, which is strictly branding. I'm not there to generate leads. If I get leads, that's just a sweet little icing on the cake type of byproduct. When you're doing lead generation, the nice thing about it is it opens up a broader variety of events. It doesn't need to be 100% targeted. With the Southwest Washington Fair, that event I was talking about, I didn't have a specific target market I was after. Maybe, you know, in the sense I preferred people who own multiple cars and owned a home and, you know, would qualify. It would be the target market for life insurance. Maybe they had young families and all that. But I didn't care about a certain demographic or a certain population center or, you know, one particular demographic group over another. You know, it was very much general population, whoever showed up. When you're doing this, though, you want to make sure, this is where you want to really make sure that the traffic is they don't have to, but they're compelled to stop by your table. And usually the way events do that is they will require you to, they'll say to everybody who comes in, we're having a raffle at the end, you can win several prizes, but you got to get this sheet signed by every vendor. So that makes them go to every table, right, if they want to win the prize. And usually that'll do the trick. There are other ways of doing this as well. I'll go into that a little bit later, but basically either that or, especially if you can get some kind of public speaking slot. If there's a program kind of halfway through the event where you're able to get up on stage and talk to people and then say, look, if you like what I said and you want to know more, then come by my table. It's right over there. And sign up and we can stay in contact. That's another great way to drive traffic to your table. And if the opportunity presents itself, take advantage of it. So that brings, now we're getting into the other part of this. If you're doing lead generation, money follows attention. So you have to give passersby a compelling reason to visit your table if you want leads. What I mean by that is I've done events where I've gone there with no reason for people to come to my table. And I remember I did one event that not a single, I mean, there must have been 5,000 people at that event. And I think we got maybe 2 people stopped by the table the entire day. 2 people that weren't event staff or, people that we knew from, anyway, it was bad. And the reason is I had no compelling reason for those people to come to the table. If I hadn't brought it, I've been lazy, and since I didn't understand the framework of this, I didn't understand what was the big deal about having a spinning wheel or a bin bag toss or something like that at the table. Well, that's the reason you have it. Now, that usually works at county fairs. If you're getting into a more sophisticated trade show where the audience is all adults and they're professionals, you're going to have to step up your game and get something that's a little bit more engaging. Friends of mine with Melanie McCullough's State Farm office here in Lacey, they do that. They will, depending on whatever event they're attending, they'll have stuff like the beanbag toss or guess how many marbles are in the jar. But then if they're doing something a little bit more advanced, they'll ask the participants a question that's specific to their industry that they would have to sort of make a mental guess to say what, to get the correct answer. And then whoever gets the answer closest to the pin, so to speak, wins the prize. When you're doing lead generation, I also want to stress, this is the skin of the game portion of this. If people are coming by your table and you have some kind of swag, some kind of merchandise, some kind of branding stuff to give away, if you just sort of willy-nilly let them take it, they're going to clean you out in the first hour and you're going to have nothing left to give away, sort of as a small token or gesture or reward for people stopping by and chatting or playing the game, that kind of thing. And so what I learned over time was I would go to, especially like county fair type events, I would go armed to the teeth with giveaways, and I would just let people take whatever they wanted. And I stopped doing that. And the reason I stopped doing it was because, I might have 4 days of lead generation at that fair. And by halfway through day 1, I was cleaned out. And you don't want that, right? Especially if it's, in my case, luckily the company was paying for that part of it. But if I'd been paying for it personally, as most business owners do, you can bet your bottom dollar I would have protected it more carefully. So there are looky-loos and there are tire kickers and there are people who just are freeloaders and just want free stuff. And there's a way to deal with that. But let me come to the next part of this and we'll get to that later. When you're doing branding, so now we're switching from lead generation where branding is implied to mainly branding. I do a lot of this at business showcases, at things put on by chambers of commerce or things like what maybe like the Thurston EDC would put on, where the main object is for the business community. The South Sound Business Expo is another great example of this, where the business community is mingling with the business community, right? In other words, it's open to the public, but it's the public at large is probably not going to be there. The majority of people there are going to be people who are in parallel professions to me. They own a business, they market, they sell, they business development, they're out in the community, they're ambassadors, they're social networkers, not Facebook social networkers, but people who are out making a living primarily by socializing. So when I do branding, I focus on a narrower variety of events. I usually try to aim it at an audience where I already know many of the attendees. So for example, I'm in Thurston County. If somebody said you want to come do a table at the Seattle Chamber of Commerce, where I'm not a member and I don't know anybody, I might think twice about that, even given the size of it. The reason is, at this kind of event, branding is important and you want to do introductions. And depending on what kind of business you're in, you may get people just shuffling right on by your table because they don't know you, right? And if you're in a business that's where the marketplace is glutted, like insurance agents like I was, you're going to get people just right on by. I don't want to talk about insurance. I came here to talk about business, right? So I would probably think twice about doing something like that, even though there would be 10 times the attendance. But this is what I like to refer to as a paid mingling opportunity, okay? It's not as essential for people for people to be driven to your table, because ideally what you're going to do is you're going to go out and mingle with people as well. You're going to have your table and you're going to spend time behind it, but you're not going to spend the entire time behind it. Ideally, you can bring an employee or have some way of spending half the time mobile and then half the time stationary. So I would bring more of your branding materials here, and that's stuff that people don't pick up unless they're really interested in, which, means you're not going to waste too much of it. But you still want to give people a compelling reason. You still want to abide by that money follows attention principle and steer people towards your table. Give them a reason to stop as they pass by. Maybe the event isn't doing it, but as they go down the aisle where your table is, they say, what's going on over here, And then the skin in the game principle is less important here because you're branding, you're shaking hands, you're making introductions, you're smiling, you're making conversation, and you just say, hey, here, have one of these, So that's how I approach the branding side of things. This is the way I look at each of these four paradigms. I say, you need to have that traffic driven to your table. If they don't offer a traffic driving method, especially if you're doing lead generation, I would evaluate it. You can take the risk, but it might not be worth your time or your money. If you can get that guest speaking opportunity, by all means take it. Branding or lead generation. That's a great way to get in front of people, to let them sample you, right? To let them get a feel for how you are and how you think. And the other thing is, especially on the branding side, if you want to be mobile and be able to leave your table, then barter with somebody. So when I was doing the South Sound Business Expo not so long ago, and one of the first times I was selling my book, I asked Nikita Hart to watch my table. She is Colonial Life, and she's now building a brand with Sergeant Hart's barbecue sauce. But she and I have always bartered that way. And what I've done is I said, look, if copies of the book sell, I'll donate some of the proceeds to wherever you're trying to raise funds for. And in exchange, I just need somebody who can be social and watch my table while I go out and mingle with people. Attention getters, let's talk about that for a minute. They've got to be relevant to the audience that you're speaking to, and they've got to complement their intelligence, right? So, like I said, spinning wheels, beanbag toss, jars and marbles, that's going to work great at family-friendly events where you're just hitting a wide swath of the population. But the more narrow it gets, the more cerebral we've got to get in terms of what we're putting out there to get people to come over our table and say, I think I know the answer to that, or I wonder what that's all about, Now
if I may ask a question, would something like a trivia question, or what that kind of thing, something industry specific potentially, or? Okay.
Correct, yeah. You got to just say you're talking to a bunch of computer software people.
Yeah.
And, I know my wife is a software engineer, but you ask them which algorithm would calculate the, something like that. Just get them guessing, and then they start guessing against each other and turn it into a friendly contest.
Okay.
Here's the part that eluded me for a long time, the skin in the game portion of it. Little kids, people who are obviously mentally disabled, that kind of thing, of course I'm going to give them, a free whatever little handout thing. I'm not going to be like that, but able-bodied working adults, right, can understand this is a public event. This table is not here by accident. They paid to be here. They're marketing. They're salespeople. That's how they make their living. Therefore, if I make contact with them, they're going to want to sell me something, right? And that's why several of them will shuffle right on past you. They know I shouldn't talk to this person unless I'm interested in possibly being sold. And that's the way I insist on treating all able-bodied working age adults who come by my table. And it's not because I'm hard-nosed or anything like that. It's simply because, look, we have a finite amount of resources here. I've got to be here in this event for a couple of days or maybe all day, whatever the case may be. I can't just give it away wantonly and then expect much later in the event to be able to have the same kind of impact that I might have if I had those things to give away. So I will tell people, look, this is how I make my living. It's nothing personal. It's not, if I had an infinite supply of this, of course you can have some, but I don't. I've got to make a living. I've got to sell people. If you don't want me contacting you because they said I'm not putting my contact information, that's fine. You don't have to put your contact information, but I get to keep my stuff, right? Fair deal. The opposite is also true. You put down your contact information, I'm gonna give you something. Even if you put it down and you have absolutely no intention of buying from me, that's fine. That's a fair trade. But as far as I'm concerned, giveaways and prizes are there to interest and attract people to the possibility of doing business with me. And so therefore, I'm not there just to be Santa Claus, right? This is how I make a living. I found when I've said that to people, they're totally okay with it. And yeah, no problem, I understand, thanks, and then they walk away, and it's okay. It's okay. We're not gonna do business. Doesn't mean we're never gonna do business, doesn't mean that person hates me, doesn't mean I hate them. It means right now, neither of us want anything to do with each other in any financial or business sense, and that's perfectly okay. You need to let people go, because if you get into the whole thing of I've got to get absolutely everybody I can, and you never stop reaching and grasping, you're going to let more and more slip through your fingers. And you could be focusing all that time on the people that really do want to do business with you. So, you may be tired and you may be overwhelmed at this point. Several people usually are. But I want to offer you a special that I'm running right now. This is my book, 10 Secrets to Networking Success. We have a launch coming September 18th at South Sound Manor here in Olympia. And if you buy today, you get 3 versions of the book. There's an autographed print copy. It's not out yet, but you'll get it as soon as it comes. Also a PDF, a digital version that you can read on your phone, and the audio version you can listen to as you're driving or working, whatever the case may be. You also get a ticket to the launch. If you're not in the area at that time, we will donate your ticket to someone else and you'll get an extra hour. There's a 1-hour marketing strategy call session, which we can do on the phone or in person or over Skype. So you'll get 2 if you're not in the area. And then there's a worksheet that I've created that goes along with this, and that just helps you sort of think about it, quantify it, say, where should I spend the majority of my time marketing? Should it be at events, or should I be more in networking groups? Should I be more on social media? Should I do an equal balance of all 3 or 60% of one? And anyway, you get the picture. Who's this for? It's for you. For you, for everybody who's in marketing, everybody who's in sales, business development, entrepreneurship. This will teach you how to turn around the whole process of being a pushy salesperson into being a magnet that pulls business towards you. So no matter what stage of the game you're in, you're just starting out or you've been at this game for 20 years, there's always something else you can add to your tool belt. And that's why I've written the book, and that's the way it's created. Normally, especially the coaching, my coaching is not cheap because I invested tens of thousands of dollars to know what I know. But in this case, it's a new book. My first book is coming out. So we've got a special on it. Normally, all of this together, I would sell for $350. If you buy today, you get 90% off. We're doing it for just $35. So you get all 3 versions of the book. You get a ticket to the launch. You get a 1-hour session. 2 if you can't be at the launch because you're not in the area. And the worksheet, the goal setting sheet, all of that. Oh, where did my last page go? I meant to have my landing page. You can go to 10secretstonetworkingsuccess.com. So 10 secretstonetworkingsuccess.com. And that's where you can order a copy of the book. We take all major credit cards. And you'll get several of the materials right away. The opportunity to will automatically register you for the launch. We'll send out a calendar for you to set the time that you want to do your coaching call, and you'll get the worksheet. And then as soon as the book is ready, Godspeed, my publisher, we will get it shipped to you, and you will also get the digital and audio versions of it. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today, and we will open the floor to any questions.
Yeah, that would be a great time if there was something you were hoping to gain from today, or if you had a question about how to make sure that you're using your time most effectively when you're at these trade shows. Now would be a great time to ask Paul while we have him here. If not, you're always welcome to to reach out to me and I can get you to Paul, or I'll make sure to include Paul's contact information in the follow-up email so that you can reach out to him, whether or not you, let's see.
Okay, a question from Jennifer. Do vendors have to pay a fee to speak at a trade show? The answer to that question, Jennifer, is sometimes. Here's an example of the way it worked for me. So back in 2015, January 2015, I was at the Lewis County Business Showcase down in Chehalis. And I paid to be a vendor with a table there. But I had no idea about speaking. This is when I was still kind of doing things haphazardly. And so at the lunch, this was a one-day event, at the lunch session, a bunch of us were standing around talking in a circle. And I tell this story in my book. And the topic came up with public speaking. And one by one, 9 out of the 10 people in that circle said, oh, I hate public speaking, don't want anything to do with it. And I guess who was number 10, right? Me. And I said, well, I love public speaking, I love doing it. And I hadn't finished saying it when the person next to me grabbed my arm and said, great, because you can get up on stage and do the rest of the raffle prizes for me. So that was Melinda Wilkes. She owns a janitorial business down there, but she was actually the organizer of the event. And so I sort of blabbed my way by just coming out and saying I love public speaking into a free speaking engagement I didn't have to pay for. Now, does that mean you can call up any event and say I'm willing to do that? I don't know. My point is, you never know when these things are going to happen. You just have to be there and wait for those opportunities. If, ahead of time you look and they say, yeah, you can come up and speak get 10 minutes on stage, but it's going to cost you an extra $200. Well, you got to decide whether or not that's worth it. But if they don't, there's going to be somebody up on stage somewhere making announcements and all that kind of thing. And sooner or later, if you do enough of these, you're going to come across an opportunity like that. And so that's why I say, if they have the opportunity, if you have the budget, take it. And if you don't have the budget, or they don't really present the opportunity as part of the event, don't count it out, because you might end up getting that opportunity anyway. Hopefully that answers your question, but if not, let me know in the message.
And I'll say, as somebody who coordinates a lot of events and speakers, a lot of times, reach out to them, because, there's a lot of conferences where we are looking for speakers. So reach out, whether it's an industry specific, and worst they can say is no, right? Right? So a lot of times people are looking for speakers, so.
Now that Tracy just said that, what do you think I'm going to ask her as soon as we get off? So.
Yeah, Paul is here today because he saw an email about these webinars and said, hey, you need speakers for that.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Absolutely.
And I'll actually do a webinar about speaking, because I do a section on that in the book. And speaking to an audience is a study in itself, which is why I wrote about it. And it's not as hard if you got the nerve. It's not as hard, but it's not as simple as ABC either. There is a method to it. So, what other questions can we answer, if any?
Okay, I don't see any more questions coming through, but that's okay. Thank you for spending your time with us today, and thank you again, Paul. It's always great to have you. And yeah, look for the email later this afternoon with the link to the recording of this, as well as the contact information and that sort of good stuff. And have a great rest of your Wednesday, everybody.
Thanks, team. See you later.